Hey guys, how have you been? And this is my holiday trip for 2021. This is the year end. The last year I did a Sonos Move review during my year end trip, but we didn't get to go anywhere. We were still stuck in Singapore during the COVID-19 pandemic, kind of semi-lockdown situation. So there were no VTLs open and we couldn't go anywhere. So we brought the Sonos Move along on a staycation and we played out the Sonos Move, playing some games, playing some movies in the hotel, but we were still physically in Singapore. This time around, we are out at the sea and we didn't bring the Sonos Move, we brought the Sonos Roam. So before I go on to my video, the upfront summary, did I regret bringing this Sonos Roam along on the trip and bogging me down and taking up space in my luggage? No, not at all. It is small enough, it is light enough, it is powered by wireless charging or USB-C charging, which I brought the cables and the charger anyway. So I'm happy that I brought the Sonos Roam along on my trip, the cruise to nowhere on Quantums of the Sea, Royal Caribbean. I wanted to do some recording out on the balcony to let you have a feel of the oceans, the waves lapping against the ship, but it got too noisy and it drowned out my voice. So here we are, back in the cabin, and as you can see, it's a little messy, so pardon me. I tried to bring everything I could. I brought my lens, I brought my camera, I brought my mic here, and the Sonos Roam. So have we been using the Sonos Roam much over the past couple of months? I would say it feels a very specific niche use case. If you were at home, you would use the other Sonos speakers that were at home because, they are bigger, right? And there's no replacement for displacement. Bigger speakers almost always means better sound. But for the Sonos Roam, it is actually one of the tiniest speaker that Sonos has made. If you're going to be out and about, yes, that's when you'll be bringing this Sonos Roam. But back in Singapore, we drive around, so the speaker system in the car is probably better than the Roam. And even if you're out on public transport, you'll be listening to your headphones or your earphones. Unlikely you'll be blasting any kind of speakers on the public transport. So the other use case which a lot of people use it for is when you are at the beach or when you're going to the pool. It wasn't a very common use case for us. We do have a pool readily accessible, but it's just that we don't go to the pool that much. So this guy has not been getting much love. So I decided to bring it along on this cruise. We are on the Royal Caribbean Quantum of the Sea. It's a cruise to nowhere. So for the last 2 days or so, we've been circling around South China Sea. I can't exactly place where we are. And if you want to take a look, let me just swing this around. It's probably going to be overexposed. Okay, so it was a little bit overexposed. So when people talk about the Sonos Move speaker, it is a much bigger speaker than the Sonos Roam, 6 times larger. That has a built-in battery. It is a heavy speaker. It is 3 kilograms in weight. It does produce some really, really big sound, right? The Sonos Roam being physically and dimensionally smaller in all aspects, in terms of volume as well, you don't expect it to put up a lot of sound. But on a cruise ship where you are kind of like limited in terms of the amount of space that you have in the cabin, you don't really want to bring the Sonos Move around. So here, the Sonos Roam actually fits right into your palm. Actually, it does go into the back pocket as well. Presuming you have some big pockets. Beer and water. So it must be the beach, it must be the pool. And on the other side, there will be a can of beer. And it's paired next to the Sonos Move. But on the Sonos Roam, I don't really see a lot of people showing pictures of the Sonos Roam next to the water, next to the pool, or even with beer. The Sonos Roam is not as big as the Sonos Move, and people don't really use it to lounge around to loud music by the pool or by the beach. So the Sonos Roam is now somewhere in South China Sea, probably about 200 kilometers away from Singapore, roaming around the seas aimlessly, round and round in circle, without docking anywhere. So let's see how this guy has been entertaining us for the last 2 days. Well, before we even get to using it, the first challenge is the pairing of this Sonos Roam. The Sonos Roam is actually a Bluetooth speaker. And the challenge with this is that there is no obvious pairing button here. Well, there is kind of like a connect or a power on button at the rear. So I'm not referring to the manual. And a lot of you guys aren't going to be referring to the manual as well. And especially on a cruise ship, it is a bitch because we do not have internet access. I'm too cheap to pay for it. Well, Actually, I decided maybe I want to upload this video while I'm on the ship, so I actually started paying for it. But before I decided to do that, I didn't refer to anything, and I realized that you actually have to hold down the power button or this button at the rear of the speaker for about 2 seconds before the whole pairing mode comes on. And there's no audible indicator that you have held on for 2 seconds, so you kind of like got to count it in your mind yourself. 1,000, 2,000, let go, right? And then it goes into pairing mode. So that was the first challenge. And after I got connected, and that was still before I had internet, I realized that you can't really play anything without internet. So we are all tethered to internet. My daughter was trying to access Spotify as well and realized that, hey, if you don't download any songs, and you're basically left with nothing, right? So if you have not downloaded any songs before you get on the cruise, and you're not tethered or you're not linked up to the internet, then this speaker is kind of hopeless. Well, you could go into Windows laptop if you brought your laptop along and start playing all those Windows sound, and that's all you're going to be listening to. And the third challenge, of course, is related to the second challenge. The high-speed internet is really costly. I think it was going to cost one person, one device, probably about $70 US for the trip, to get high-speed internet so that I could stream, so that I could upload videos, so I could listen to the music. So this is probably an expensive video to make. So on this channel, I always think of new and innovative ways to help enrich our users' understanding, our viewers' understanding of audiophile products, especially wireless audiophile products. Now, a lot of you may be slamming me and saying that, wait, this is not really audiophile, but things have gotten so good recently, in recent years, that computational audio is probably overtaking the whole listening preference of a lot of audiophile out there. There are purists out there who will still insist that a straight path power amp, no coloration on the preamp part, and all the source devices are going to be critical. But my take on that is open up your mind a little bit, start listening to some of these new computational audio devices, right? This small speaker here, you wouldn't think that it will put out some bass, but here it is. So all these innovative videos, they kind of take and cost money to make, and there's a lot of effort involved. Now, if you're keen in supporting this channel, I'll leave my Patreon link somewhere, maybe here. All right. And if you can scan the QR code, you will be able to go to my Patreon site and you could contribute to my coffee fund. So we brought the 16-inch new 2021 MacBook Pro powered by the M1 Pro chip, and the speakers are supposed to be really, really great, and there's quite a bit of bass. Yes, I was kind of taken aback because the expectation from a laptop speaker isn't that high, but for those of you who say that the bass is great coming out from the speaker, come on, please. Let's not kid ourselves. So after you pair the Sonos Roam with the MacBook Pro, then if you are going to be streaming anything on Netflix, or you're going to be watching anything to pass your time on a cruise, you start hearing bass. So movies get a lot more engaging. I also kind of fired up Lara Croft as well. It's an old game, but I just keep it around on the MacBook Pro because, it's a good test of the graphics capability of the laptop. And the sound came across pretty well. It is not quite room filling, but if you put the speaker right in front of you, and because it's so small, it is easy to put it near you, the sound actually gets pretty rich and pretty deep in terms of bass, right? As long as you are still in the room. Now, what happens when you move it to the balcony? So I've taken some shots of this speaker, the Sonos Roam, on the balcony. So if I go over to my B-roll now, you'll see how I've been deploying it. Now, when it's out in the open, the Sonos Roam is not going to be projecting that big a sound, right? Because it kind of requires the reinforcement of a closed room or a nearby wall or corner to throw the bass notes out and to make the sound a little bit louder. Now, in the balcony of this cabin is kind of smallish. There are panels separating the balconies from each individual stateroom. It opens out to the sea, and a lot of the sound is not going to get reinforced. To expect this small little speaker that is barely the size of my palm to throw out enough sound, maybe you'll be expecting a little bit too much. out in the open, I would say that my volume needs to go up to 80 and even pumped up to 90, 100% before it gets engaging of any sort. But we did engage in some kind of a karaoke out there, and we had some sing-along to The Greatest Showman. And the fact that it is not that loud, it doesn't really interfere with our neighbors, and we weren't afraid that it was going to disturb our neighbors because the walls are actually pretty thin here. So glad that I didn't bring the Sonos Move. Not that I would have, because it would have taken up half of my suitcase. This guy, really, I put it in my backpack. So at the end of the day, if you are asking me about the Sonos Roam, would I keep it around for very, very specific purposes like this? Well, I would say yes, I kind of would, because it allows you to take a piece of Sonos with you when you're traveling, and it doesn't take up so much space. All right, I cannot imagine anyone who's traveling anywhere with the Sonos Move. I know some of the Sonos users, they do that, but I won't do that, right? If I miss any piece of Sonos, I think the Sonos Roam is perfect for bringing around on a trip. It literally fits on your palm or a big pocket. Am I glad that I kept it around? Yes. So now I'm off to take the North Star. It is an elevator, kind of like a lift arm on a boom arm that brings you to I don't know how many meters, how many feet above the whole cruise ship that I can see around the whole cruise ship. And I'm going to be bringing the speaker along. Not that I'm going to be playing anything, because I believe that there are other guests on the ship who will be taking the North Star with me. I'll see you back on land.